The sun was already high in the sky by the time the last group of students gathered behind the tall white curtain on the stage. The crowd in the school gym was buzzing with joy, camera flashes going off like fireworks, proud families packed tightly into rows of plastic chairs. It was graduation day, a day meant to be full of celebration, hugs, and hope for the future. But for Malik, the moment didn't feel like a celebration at all. He stood quietly in the back, his cap slightly tilted, and his gown wrinkled from being folded in his backpack all morning. While other students were posing for photos and cracking jokes, he kept his eyes low, shoulders tense. Malik wasn't just nervous. He was used to this feeling, being on edge, keeping his guard up. High school had never been easy for him. Being one of the only black boys in a mostly white school had come with its own silent rules. He'd learned early to stay quiet, not draw attention, and keep walking even when he heard the whispers behind him. But no matter how hard he tried to keep his head down, some kids just wouldn't leave him alone. Today was supposed to be different. Graduation was supposed to be a clean slate. But even here, in this final moment, Malik couldn't escape them. Yo, Malik didn't know they let janitors wear caps and gowns now, one of the boys sneered. It was Jason, tall, blonde, and always surrounded by his pack of friends. His voice was loud enough to turn a few heads, and the laughter that followed cut through Malik like a blade. Maybe he's just here to sweep the stage after we get our real diplomas, another boy added, nudging Malik's shoulder just enough to make him stumble slightly. Malik clenched his jaw but said nothing, his fingers curled tightly around the paper program in his hand. His mother was in the crowd somewhere, probably straining to see him. He couldn't let her see this. Not again. But the boys weren't done. Jason leaned in closer, his smile sharp and mocking. Come on, Malik. Say something. Or are you saving your voice for when you're begging for tips at the drive-thru? For a second, Malik's eyes met his. There was a flicker of something raw and ancient behind them, something that had been growing inside him for years. But he looked away, biting down the storm that was begging to rise. He didn't want to fight, not here, not now. He had made a promise to himself and his mom, no more trouble. Still, the laughter echoed in his ears as the line began to move forward, out. In the crowd, Carmen sat near the back with her baby bump pushing against the tiny foldable chair. She was exhausted, her feet swollen, and the June heat pressing in from all directions. But she was smiling. A stranger, barely a teenager, had given up his seat for her on the bus that morning. Black kid, quiet, respectful, didn't say much. But when he stood and waved her over, something about the gesture had touched her deeply. She'd been having a hard time lately. The father of her unborn child had disappeared, and she was trying to make it on her own. That little moment of kindness had reminded her that there were still good people in the world. And now, hours later, she sat at this graduation, waiting to celebrate her cousin who was about to walk the stage. As she fanned herself with a graduation booklet, she spotted the boy who gave up his seat earlier. He was standing behind the curtain, wearing a cap and gown. That was him. She was sure of it. Her smile grew. But the moment shifted when she noticed the way a few other boys were circling around him like wolves. She saw the shove, the smirk, the way Malik's shoulders sank slightly. Her heart tightened. She'd seen that look before. She knew what it meant to be alone in a crowd. Back on stage, names were being called. One by one, students stepped forward, shook hands with the principal, and received their diplomas. Applause filled the gym. Jason Miller, the announcer, boomed, and the crowd erupted as Jason jogged across the stage, throwing a cocky wink at the audience before accepting his diploma. Then came the name that silenced the room for a beat. Malik Johnson. There was a short pause before the applause came, soft, scattered. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. He could feel eyes on him from every direction, some curious, some cold. His steps were calm, but his heart was racing. He walked past Jason, who whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "Try not to trip, janitor." Malik didn't flinch. He just walked. As he reached the principal, their eyes met. The older man smiled, handed him the diploma, and said quietly, "You earned this, son. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise." Malik nodded. "Just one more step. Just get across the stage." But just as he turned to walk off, someone from the side of the stage shouted, "Show us your dance moves, Malik. You people love to dance, right?" The laughter was louder this time. The principal's smile faded. The USI staff looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to intervene. Malik stopped. For a long second, he didn't move. Then slowly he turned back to face the crowd. He scanned the sea of faces, many now silent, watching, waiting. His eyes found Jason and the others in the front row, still snickering. He took a step toward the edge of the stage. Not toward the mic, toward them. Jason's laughter died. The room went still. No one knew Malik outside of school. No one knew what he'd gone through, what he'd endured, or what he was truly capable of. But they were about to find out. And as Carmen watched, from the crowd, her hand resting on her belly, something told her this boy, this young man, was about to change everything. But just as Malik's foot hit the first step off the stage, a loud crash echoed from the gym entrance. Everyone turned. 2 security officers rushed toward the stage, shouting something no one could understand at first. There was confusion, shouting, chairs screeching, and in the middle of it all, Carmen felt a strange pull in her chest, like fate was circling in. She looked down at the folded piece of paper she had slipped into the boy's pocket earlier that morning, back when he'd given up his seat. A note she hadn't thought much of at the time. But now, as chaos stirred in the gym, that note would turn out to be the beginning of something no one could have seen coming. Not Jason, not the principal, not even Malik himself. Because this wasn't just about a graduation. It was about identity, about dignity, and about one young man who'd been underestimated one too many times. What happened next would not only silence the bullies, it would shock the entire school. And it all began with a seat and a note, to be continued. The crowd froze as the sound of the crash echoed again, sharp, metallic, and jarring. Parents stood up in their seats. Teachers exchanged nervous glances. Students clutched their phones. Malik paused halfway down the steps, one hand still gripping his diploma, the other hanging tightly at his side. His eyes narrowed, scanning the gym entrance where the noise had come from. 2 security guards rushed toward the stage, their voices urgent and overlapping. "Everyone, please remain calm," one of them called. "Stay in your seats." But it was too late. Whispers spread like wildfire and people started shifting, some getting up, some pulling their children closer. The cheerful chaos of graduation had turned into quiet panic. Malik glanced to the left. Jason and his friends were no longer laughing. They looked unsettled now, their eyes darting from Malik to the gym doors and back again. It was like they could feel something had changed, but couldn't quite name it yet. Carmen's heart was pounding. Her hand stayed protectively over her belly, but her eyes were locked on Malik. She didn't know why she was so focused on him. Maybe it was the way he hadn't reacted to the bullying, or how calm he seemed in the middle of the mess. There was something more to him, something deeper. She remembered the note she'd given him earlier that morning. She hadn't planned to. It had been a random, emotional moment. But something about his kindness on the bus, the way he quietly stepped back, gave up his seat without a word, had stirred something in her. She'd been holding on to that note for weeks, and now it was in his pocket. She didn't even know if he had read it. Back on stage, Malik slowly stepped down the last stair. His eyes were still fixed on the commotion, but his thoughts were drifting, not just to what was happening right now, but to everything that had led up to this moment. He had been fighting his whole life, not with fists, though people assumed that about him. No, his battles had always been quieter, lonelier. Growing up in a rough part of the city, Malik had learned young that people made quick decisions about who you were based on what they saw. He'd seen the way store clerks kept an extra eye on him when he walked in, the way teachers lowered their expectations before he even spoke. He learned to read the signs, how people would cross the street, clutch their bags tighter, or lock their car doors just a second too soon. His mother always told him, "You don't need to prove nothing to nobody. Just keep your head up and your heart clean." But even she didn't know everything. She didn't know about the late nights Malik spent at the gym, pouring out his anger in silence. He didn't tell her about the underground fight club he stumbled into when he was 13. He never talked about the trainer, a former Marine named Curtis, who'd taken him under his wing. Curtis taught him not just how to fight, but how to control the fire. "You don't fight because you're angry," Curtis would say. "You fight so you don't burn everything down." Malik trained for years, early mornings before school, late nights after his mom fell asleep. It wasn't about violence, it was about survival. But no one at school knew. He never told them. Why would he? They had already decided who he was. To them, he was just another angry black kid. And Jason, the golden boy, had always made sure to keep him in that box. Jason had it all. Wealthy parents, popularity, teachers who adored him. He could do no wrong in their eyes. He walked through school like he owned it, like everyone else was just background in his story. And for years Malik had stayed out of his way. Until now. Now the curtain had been pulled back just a little. The school had seen a glimpse, just a glimpse of something else in Malik, something unshakable. And for some reason the fear in Jason's eyes said he felt it too. One of the security guards reached the microphone. "Please everyone, there's been a minor incident outside. We have it under control. We're asking everyone to remain seated until we finish calling the last few graduates." "Thank you." The principal stepped forward, adjusting his tie, trying to smooth things over. "Let's keep the energy positive," he said, his voice trembling just slightly. "This is a celebration, remember?" The announcer cleared his throat and called the next name. The ceremony continued, but the mood had shifted. Something had cracked beneath the surface. Malik walked slowly back to his seat. As he passed Jason, their eyes locked again. This time, Jason didn't smile. He didn't say a word. He just stared. Like, maybe for the first time, he didn't know who he was dealing with. In the back of the gym, Carmen kept her eyes on Malik. She felt like she needed to talk to him, to make sure he read the note. It wasn't long, just a few lines. But what it said, it mattered. She didn't know how much it would matter. Not yet. Outside the school, 2 officers stood by a black sedan with tinted windows. A man in a plain suit stood with them, looking toward the gym doors like he was waiting for someone. He didn't look like a parent. He didn't look like faculty. And he wasn't here for the ceremony. Inside, Malik sat down just as the last name was called. The audience clapped politely. Families stood to cheer. Some students threw their caps into the air. But Malik just sat. Still holding his diploma, his face unreadable. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded paper. Carmen watched from across the gym, barely breathing. He unfolded it slowly. His eyes moved over the words. Then, something in his expression shifted. He read the note again. Slower this time. A long silence followed. The noise around him faded into the background. The words on the paper were simple, but powerful. "You don't know me, but I want you to know this. Sometimes life chooses certain people for a reason. You may not see your power yet, but I do. Keep walking. Someone's watching, and you're about to be called for something bigger." Malik stared at the note. His hands trembled slightly. He didn't know how she knew. He didn't even know her name, but he felt it too, something coming. The man outside the gym glanced at his watch. He turned toward the door, and for Malik, everything he thought he knew about himself, his past and his future, was about to change. Malik stayed seated long after most of the crowd had stood to cheer, hug, and celebrate. Around him, the gym buzzed with the sounds of joy, balloons popping, camera flashes, mothers crying, friends yelling. But inside, Malik felt still. The note in his hand was now folded again, tucked carefully back into his pocket like it carried more weight than the diploma he had worked for. His eyes kept drifting to the gym entrance, where the man in the black suit had briefly appeared before. Disappearing into the hallway, he wasn't afraid. That wasn't it. But something told him the day wasn't over yet. Jason was still standing with his crew, but their energy had shifted completely. Gone were the smirks and whispered jokes. Now they watched Malik from across the gym with tight jaws and stiff shoulders. One of them, Austin, leaned in to say something to Jason, and Jason just shook his head. His eyes didn't leave Malik. It was as if he was trying to figure him out, and for the first time, coming up short. Malik didn't break eye contact. Not because he wanted to challenge them, but because he didn't have to hide anymore. Not today. Carmen was still in her seat too, waiting for the crowd to thin out so she could approach him. She clutched her graduation program with both hands, wondering if Malik had truly read the note the way she hoped he would. She didn't know why she cared so much, but something about him, the silence, the strength in his stillness, made her want to believe he was more than what the others thought. And now, she had a feeling she wasn't wrong. Backstage, the principal was speaking in hushed tones to a group of teachers and one of the security guards. He kept glancing toward the gym doors, and the staff looked uneasy. Something had changed. The moment that crash echoed through the building. They were all pretending the ceremony was still normal, but behind the scenes, tension gripped them like a vice. Outside, the man in the suit was speaking into a small device clipped to his shirt. "He's still inside. I've got eyes, no contact yet. Waiting for green light," a voice replied faintly from his earpiece, but his response was only a short nod. Back inside, Malik finally stood. He adjusted the front of his gown and stepped away from the crowd. He didn't know where he was going, but his feet moved with purpose. Maybe it was time to leave, or maybe time to face whatever was coming. As he reached the hallway, Carmen called out behind him. "Malik!" He turned. She was walking toward him, slowly, carefully, holding her belly as she made her way through the crowd. When she reached him, she smiled gently, nervous but sure. "You read it?" she asked. Malik nodded. "Good," she said. I felt like someone had to say it. You don't even know what kind of weight you carry, do you?" Malik looked down, then back at her. "I'm starting to." They stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by the noise of families and friends. Before Carmen could say anything else, a voice echoed through the hallway. "Malik Jennings." He turned. The man in the suit had entered the gym hallway, standing, straight and formal, like he belonged somewhere more official than a high school graduation. His voice was clear, calm. "I'd like a word with you." Carmen stepped instinctively closer, her expression tightening. Malik glanced at her, then nodded toward the man. "Do I know you?" Malik asked, steady. "No, but I know you. I work with a private agency, and I've been monitoring you for some time. You've caught the attention of people who don't usually notice high school seniors." Malik tilted his head. "What kind of people?" The man gave a thin smile. "People who understand what it means when someone walks through fire and comes out still standing." Before Malik could respond, another shout rang out across the hallway. Jason was pushing his way toward them, his face red, his voice rising. "Oh, come on. What is this now? What, are you recruiting him for something?" Jason scoffed, throwing a hand toward Malik. "This guy's a walking threat. He's been skating by just because he keeps his mouth shut." The man in the suit turned toward Jason calmly. "We're not interested in your opinions, Mr. Turner." Jason flinched, surprised to be addressed so directly. "You see," the man continued, "sometimes the quiet ones are the ones who've already figured out the game. And sometimes the ones who talk the loudest are just scared they're not playing it anymore." Jason's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Malik looked at Carmen, then at the man again. He felt the weight of the note in his pocket and the pull of something much bigger than himself. "I don't know what you're talking about," Malik said carefully. "You will," the man replied. "But not today. Today I just need to confirm one thing." He stepped closer. "That night last year at the abandoned warehouse near 52nd Street, you were there." Malik's eyes sharpened. Someone left a group of armed men unconscious, no weapons, no witnesses. But whoever it was, the man paused. They moved like they'd been trained. Jason looked from one face to the other. "What is this? Are you accusing him of something? He's been in school all year." Malik didn't say anything. Carmen blinked. "What warehouse?" The man gave Malik a small nod. We're not accusing, we're just offering options. But some doors only, open ones. With that, he handed Malik a sealed envelope. It had no name, no address, just a strange symbol on the front. Malik took it slowly, feeling its weight, knowing it wasn't ordinary. Read it when you're ready. We'll know if you open it. Then the man turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd as easily as he'd appeared. Jason stood there, stunned. Carmen looked at Malik, unsure what had just happened. Malik didn't speak. His fingers tightened around the envelope, because inside, he suspected, were answers to questions he hadn't even known to ask. And out there, beyond the gym, walls, the world he thought he knew, was about to fall apart.